We begin the current Daf Lama Gimel. We begin 10 lines down at the top of the Amud with the Gemara continuing to explain the halacha of our Mishnah. We were saying that if a husband sends the get to his wife and he gets to the shliach or he gets to the woman before and the mevatl, it's bottle. But it used to be that what they used to do is they didn't run after. What they did is they just made their own bezin, and it wasn't menas b'yad yet, and it was mevatlet until Rimli came along and he's misakin that no, this should not be done. They tikkun olam, that this well-known word that's tikkun olam, that shouldn't be done. Which I'm going to explain exactly what is this tikkun olam. Now, today's daf. I'm discussing today's daf are this takana shegmolil. What is the takana for? Is it because the takana is mamzerim, or because takana is agunis? Like we'll explain in the Gemara what those two options are. The halacha of batlin mavutal, when someone is mavatal, it's batal. How does that work? Because come the mekadosh adaita did abon mekadosh. Whoever is mekadosh does it on the meaning there are cases that we're going to say are batal, even though we said you shouldn't be, because or to say that even when he's mavatal, it's not going to work because we go based on what the rabbi is doing. Let's say you have 10 people saying you want them to write the get for you. Could you mevatel some of them when not in front of the others? That relates to halacha of edus about miktas about the kula. If you nullify part of an edus, do we say that all the edus is batal or not? So begin the current daf of Lama Gimel, 10 lines down at the top of the Yamid. So we said in the Mishnah, Rimli Hazakin was masakin, not to be mevatel with just a random bezdin unless you get to the shliach of the woman. They tikkun ha'olam because of the remedy for the world. Says the Gemara, "My tikkun ha'olam." What does this mean? Tikkun ha'olam, to remedy the world. So Rabbi Yechon Amar, he said, "Mamnei takanas mamzeichem." He says we need this takana for illegitimate children. What does that mean? We don't want to have mamzeichem in the Jewish people. As the Gemara is going to explain, because we don't want forlorn, forsaken women. What does this mean? Rabbi Yechon said, Nachman that we mentioned the previous Amid, the Amid that he says, Bifnei Shnayim. So what did used to happen? Used to happen was you would get two people before the takana, and you mevatel the get in front of them. Wait a second, the Beit Shrei Leslie Kala. Two people. The word doesn't get out. It's not a bezdin. Which tries to ask, why weren't they masakin just to do it in front of three? It says, no, netakan zagunas, as we'll see in a second what that is. But they used to do it in front of two, because you're allowed to do it in front of two. In front of two, the word doesn't get out. So v'hila shama, so she doesn't hear about it. But the other, she doesn't know. She's going to get married. They come to be illegitimate children. How is she supposed to know? You didn't go to her, you didn't send a message. You didn't get to the shliach. So therefore, takanas mamzerim, that she shouldn't get married and have illegitimate children, that's why they were mavatelis. He says, takanas agunes. What does that mean? So he held like Rav Sheshes from the previous Amid, the Amid that he says that when they used to mavatel was b'fnei gimel, from the three people. Now, beit lasa islu kala, that by three people is already like a bezdin, and already the word gets out, and which Taisa discusses why we don't say that regarding loans. Also, that word gets out because people usually loan discreetly. But in general, three people, the word's going to get out. And v'shama v'yada b'la mitzvah. So she'll hear, she'll know, she won't get married. But so then, why can't you mevatlet? But takanas agunes hu deika. What does that mean? Rashi explained, because we make you have to go after the shliach, or at least to send another shliach, he's not going to go through that whole tircha, because to keep her an aguna, meaning that she can't get divorced. So therefore, we said that no, you have to go either send the shliach or go after her, because if it was so easy just to walk into shil by minchas, oh, was tetzach yach, get the really doesn't, yeah. And the Rabbi said, "Lamavatl zan," and they went to Lamavatl. That's it. That all he takes is that. It's not a big thing. So takan zagunis means to say because they didn't want him to make it that she will be stuck, so therefore they made it that you have to go and get to the woman or get to the shlich. So that's because he held. Not there's no problem on because she'll know about it, but because of agunis, which as Taisa explains, even though halachically she's not allowed to get married, but that's considered igun because of that she's being stuck in this situation.
saying that from Zerem could have been rectified by doing three.
Oh, that's Taisa's question.
Right. So,
but then Taisa says,
let him say like
no, but no, because that he holds like Rav Nachman that lets it being done in front of two. That's what you used to do. They were able to do it in front of two. If we let this continue, there's a problem about mamzeres. Unless we came along, Mesakin, the Rabun came at the Azab Psak, Mizonish Mavatlan, Fat Sva, Fat Drai. Doing that, then again, you're going back to Rish Lakish. There's another step. Right. The question is, why do you have to do that? Just make a takana, do it in front of three, because your whole concern is mamzeres. So he says, no, then Rabbi Yechon will have Rish Lakish concern from the Igud. In turn, we'll learn the Brisa. What happens if Bitloi? Let's say, okay, Rabbi Gamliel was already made his takana, and then someone else goes and he is mevatl in front of a bezin. The guy doesn't listen to the takana. What's the halacha now? Actually, machlekes. Mevutel divrei Rabbi. Rabbi says even though he violated Gamliel's takana, okay, lamaisa he was mevatl the shliach, so it is going to be batal. Shmuel Leimer says no. Ein yachol, he's not able to loy levatloi, not to nullify it, and v'loy lahaysav al, he can't even add on to his conditions. He comes out and someone says, "What's going on?" He says, "Oh, we gave him the get. We get. Vivos is toying you. What? Nothing happens. So she has to take care of this. What? You could have gotten $10,000 from that. You says, go make a condition that you're only letting it. Oh, what could I do? I already sent it. Yeah, go make a bezin now and add on to the conditions. No, you can't even add on to the conditions. Hashem Kain, if that's the case that you were able to add on to the conditions, makoich bezdin. Then what is the strength of the court of the Gamliel who made a takana yafa any good? If you could just nullify the words, just like doing it like that. That was his whole takana. So therefore, that's machlekes tanoim. If after the takana, can you be mavatlet by violating the takana or not? Says the Gemara, wait a second. Is there such a thing? The Medarais about Gita, biblically, the get is bottle because it didn't come to her hand yet. And this guy is being mevatel the shlich from being a shlich to gerushin because he's taking out a bezdin over here. So mishum makoich bezdin yafa, because of this concern about what's going to be the function of the court. A sharina ish islam, we permit a married woman to get to the world. She's a married woman. She's not divorced. He's mevatel the get. So yeah, the Rabunan, we're not giving chashivas with the Rabunan. The koich bezdin is not yofa, but the Weiser, she's still a married woman. The Gemara says yes. It will be mevatel it. How's that possible? Because called the Mekadesh, whoever gets engaged, Adaita did upon Mekadesh. He gets engaged with the intent of the rabbis, meaning that the Kedushin should take effect according to the law of Moshe and the Jewish people, which the sages of the Jewish people instituted. And that's why Taisa says, we say at the time of Kedushin, Kedas Moshe v'Yisrael. Azoi Fitmaran, the Kedushin has to be according to the way the Rabbanan instituted. Fafkin, the Rabban, the Kedushin minay. And the rabbis, they said that any Kedushin in the Jewish people that has such a get should be removed. Yeah, so if it's removed, because it was with that intent that he got engaged to her. Now, Tais has a lot of interesting questions based on this. He says, wow, what a go'inus. He says, we were concerned, remember we spoke about you have to have a date in the get because he might be married to his niece and he might try to cover for her when she's mezana. He has such a chap. He says, wait a second. Yeah, Gevaldik. When Adam come along, it says, we found your niece, your wife, she was mezana. I'll send her a get. Then he'll be mevatlet. Shaloi b'fnei the shliach. Then that's going to be mafkia the kedushin. Comes out, she was never married. As I go in this, as Taisa says, as I kasha, alamdin says she's never married. Wasn't mezana? We've never married all these years, right? So the Reese says that no, he has a very interesting Taisus, interesting cheshbainis, but he has this cheshbin that you could have such a einfall to say, but upon him, that's what the Gemara is saying. Yes.
If that's the case, then there's no
okay, so there won't be a super anyway. No, so Tais has a better question. It says every time let's see, how could you warn anyone, let's say by a Nazir, for example, when he's being over Naziris, at Sasra Safik, because he might be shayil on the Neder, and he might be shayil on the Naziris. How do you ever punish? How do you ever, let's say, how do you have a skila? How do you have a mitzvah for all these different cases? So Tais talks about that what his intent is when he's doing it. I mean, here it's talking about where it's not deviant. Here it's not a deceptive practice. Here he's actually trying to mevatel it. Here he's not trying to. He's trying to like chapais the system, whatever. So back upon him, the reason why it works over here is it's not because it's a good get. Really, it's not a good get because you mevatel it. So she's Eish. No, you're not. She's not Eish because she's never married to you then. Because the Rabbun had gezug, azar get is your get, and you'll be mevatel it. Okay, this is that condition because your whole condition was based on the understanding of the rabbis. So that says the Gemara, wait a second. Amalei Ravina Ravashi says, Teinich the Kaddish Bekaspa. I understand if the Kedushin happened with money. You could say the Rabbanan removed the Kedushin with their rabbinic get, because it's not really a get biblically, it's their rabbinic get, and they say, you know what, let the money retroactively be a gift. And it's removed because when you got engaged, it was based on the Das Rabbanan. They're saying your money was a gift. But Kaddish Bebiyah, if the Kedushin was with intimacy, which the Gemara learns the Kedushin of Dalma base, when it says in the pasuk Kikach Ish Isha Uba'Allah, that a woman could be engaged with Biyah, what removal could you say in the Biyah? What are you removing? It's Gevei not Biyah. So there was a Kedushin. What are you removing? Says Gemara, Shavir Rabbanan Lebilasi, the rabbis are equating his Biyah retroactively through this rabbinic get. Be'ilas nos. It was an act of immorality because they removed well, not really. I mean, there's out of wedlock, but it's not. Mamzeris is when there's a single man and a single girl wouldn't make it into mamzeris.
What do you do with the bia after the guy got married to Essa? Same thing. The guy got married, regular condition, gave a ring.
Right.
And then
right, but the bia was not what made the kedushin. The money was what made the kedushin.
So what was that bia?
That is going to be znus. But when the ma'isa kedushin was the ma'isa bia, you have to be removing it from the ma'isa bia. What are you translating it as? No, so by money you could translate it as a gift. What are you translating the bia as? Yes, Rabbanan say, we're translating it as the ma'isa znus, which is a chiddush because a person generally would not want his bia to be znus, but the Chacham have a koyach, since your kedushin was based on their laws, so therefore it's going to be considered as biznus. Now, so therefore, the same thing as Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, that when he says that you cannot invalidate it, shaloi b'fanav, we're going to consider it as it was never kedushin in the first place. That says Rashi. This is how I explain in old places milibi. This is how I understand the sugya. He says I was makabel for my rabbanan, for my teachers, and the Rambam Shita seems to be like this. Is that the Gemara was understanding differently. The Gemara was saying that Kol Mekadosh Adai Rabban Mekadosh. The Gemara says, I understand how it works to retroactively revoke the kedushin by kesef, because kesef is rabbinic, because it doesn't say explicitly in the Torah anywhere about kedushin with money. You learn enough from Gzeir Shov of kicha from stay Ephron. And that's what the Gemara asks. Okay, Tenich the Kaddish Bekaspa, but Kaddish Bebi, which explicit pasuk in the Torah, kikach ishisha bala. What are you going to say? How can you be oikad davim in a Torah? On that, the Gemara answers. The Rabbanan made his bia as nus. Whenever you mekadosh b'bia, as the Gemara says, the kedushin not be based in base. Rav would give lashes whoever was mekadosh b'bia because of pritzes. That's how his Rabbanan, his teachers, his Rebbeim explained the shiur. But he says there's many difficulties on this. First of all, a Gzeir Shav itself is considered dvar Torah, biblical, not rabbinic. So what do you tell me? Kaddish Bekaspa is rabbinic? It's biblical because where do you know that the halach of skila? It's only by Gzeir Shava. Noiser, which is chorus, is from Gzeir Shava. Now I'm a rasa that she gets killed by kedusha kesef. If it's rabbinic, how are you going to kill her? It's only rabbinic kedushin. Moreover, what's the Gemara's answer that they made his bia as nus? How does that equate that they make him be as nus? But it's deraisa. When Rav, we said, gives lashes, whoever's mekadosh b'bia, it's not nullifying the kedushin. He's just giving lashes. Why'd you do it like that? Obviously, they're both deraisa, but this that the Rabban have a is because at the time of kedushin, you're totally in their das that the kedushin should be kadas that the way Chacham did Yisrael. That was the Gemara's question. So I understand money. How you can do by znus? How you can do by beer? That we'll make it znus. So the Rashi disagrees with his Rebbeim in how to explain the Gemara.
The ripple effect is he gave her hasra in case of Saita, she could just say, we were never married, and therefore I don't have to drink it. Znus.
Well, that was Tais's question regarding if you could say that no, it's not znus. They're married. Only if here we're saying that the takanas from Lil. No, you can't. No, you can't be involved in kedushin. The Rabbanan, they were the ones who made. You did it based on their das to kedushin. Kedas Moshe v'Yisrael. Now the Rabbanan, they could go ahead and say, well, we're removing this kedushin. Now, when would they do that? Only when you really sent the get. Mlil Hazukim was masakin, not mevatel this, chitz from the shliach or the isha, and the guy violated that to Kanjang Mlil, and he went and he made his own bezdin. Says, hey, you can't make your own bezdin. We decide the halacha. You know what? You're going to try mevatel, which you were, and it is a bittul. But you know what we're going to do? We're going to go one step better. We're going to make it was never kedushin in the first place. Now she can go free. So it overrides his override. Right? He's able to override, but we override your override. Yeah. So it's never a kedushin in the first place. Now the Gemara brings another related machlekes, seemingly related. Turn in the brayso. Amala Sarah. Someone says to 10 people, "Kiss will get ishti. I want you guys to write a get for my wife." Now the Gemara tells us later in the Samach Vav and Beis, whenever you don't say the word kulchem, you don't say all of you should write. But he's talking to 10 people. He's 10 people over here. He says, "Okay, write a get for my wife." It doesn't say kulchem. So then the halacha is 1 has to write and 2 have to sign. They don't all have to write and sign. So the halacha is yachal levatel. He can nullify and tell 2 of them, "No, you guys, I don't want you guys to write." And he could do that. Zeh shaloi b'fnei zeh. He could do it when he's telling these people, not in front of the other people. And this is not uprooting the takanas regum liel by doing that. That's the Rebbe. That's the opinion of Rebbe. Shimon Lilami says, seemingly l'shitasai, that in yochel levatel. No, you cannot be mevatel because this is also from the takana, where that if you're going to try to mevatel, it's not mevutel, because if that's the case, ma koich bezdin yafa. Well, what's his l'shitas of what we said before? Ma koich bezdin yafa. No, Rabbi is takana. Rabbi was the one who made the takana. Rabbi is a few lines up from me. He says, no, you can't do a bittul unless you're doing it in front of the woman or front of you have to do a total bittul. So he says, only when they're all together. So he must say, wait a second, but what's this machlekes if you could take 2 of the guys and say, hey, you guys are not part of this. You guys, I don't want you guys doing this. Or no, you have to do it all in front of them. Could it be zeh shaloi b'fnei zeh, or does it have to be zeh b'fnei zeh? So the Gemara says, I'll tell you what the machlekes is. Machlekes is be'eda shabbat l'miktsasa. When you nullify part of the testimony, there's 10 people who are supposed to be part of this process, and you're taking 2 of them and mevatel them. But l'kula, does that nullify the whole thing? That's a machlekes. So how do we understand? So the Gemara explains. Rebbe who held that you could do this, just these 2 guys in a separate room, because he holds Eidish Shabbat L'Miktsasa. When you nullify some of the Eidish as Gitin Tamid Beis, Leibat L'Kula, not nullifying the whole thing. So what does this come into? How does this come into the Takan Malil? What does it even have to do with that? Because like Rashi explains. So Malil was not concerned to appoint a court to make a takana for this, to not let you be mevatel 2 of them, not in front of the other 8, because there's no problem at tikkun olam over here. Why not? Because v'i azli hanach, if the other 8 guys, who you were not mevatel those 2 in front of them, so they don't know anything about that he told 2 of them, guys, I don't want you guys to write this get. If they go ahead and kasvi yahavi, and they write and they give it to her, and then she goes and she gets married, no problem. Let them write and give it, because she's allowed to get married. Because when he was mevatel those 2 guys, it was only them. It wasn't bat l'kula. So there's no tikkun olam over here. So therefore Rebbe holds, yeah, you can mevatel 2, not in front of the rest. Shmuel Saba, he held, no. Eidish about Miktsasa, when you mevatel some of the testimony, but l'kula, you're nullifying all of it. So even though there's 2 people that remain that their testimony is a testimony, and he wasn't mevatel in front of them, no, they're also batel. Now that's a problem. Because v'hanach lo yadi, the other ones don't know there's mevatel. V'azli b'kastavi havi, and they're going to write and give it to her, and she's going to get married with a get pasul. V'shalhu eishes shel alma, and you be permitting eishes alma. Therefore, that is included in the takana shel mamlila tikkun olam, that you can't have bitlins in front of some of them, and that's what Shimon Lishitah say that. So you can't go against the takana, because that's going to create the original problem of what the takana was for, and therefore it's not going to be batal when you do it in front of 2 of them. Shaloi b'fnei, the other one, because they're not going to know about it. That's one interpretation. If you want, you could say a different interpretation. The kulam, according to everyone, Eid Shabbat Miktsasa, when you nullify some of the witnesses, loy bat lekuli, not nullifying all of them. So if you're not nullifying all of them, so seemingly the halacha should be like Rabbi, where okay, go ahead. So then you could do it shloi b'fnei zeh because you don't care. You're not mevat the other ones. So let the other 8 or 2 or 3 or whatever go and write it. So the truth is, you're right. It's not because of a gzeira that Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg says you cannot do it shloi b'fnei zeh. Here, the reason is not because it's takana. It's rather because Ksava, he holds, bittul is not effective as a bittul until you do the bittul in front of all of them. Why? Not because of takana, tikkun olam, because we're concerned, whatever, because it's really mavat. No, it's just milsa de misavde be'api asara. Something that was done in front of 10, you need 10 to be able to remove it. So like Rashi explains, according to the Iboy Yisema, the Eina Yachal that he says, it's not like an isser, like, oh, you're not allowed to because you're violating the takana. No, what he means to say is, in the Yachal, simply, you don't have the power to do it. When you activated something, to deactivate requires the same elements that you had when you activated it. So since you activated with 10, you could only deactivate it in front of 10 also.
Wouldn't the other 8 be obligated to inquire why the other 2 are not available? And therefore, once they find out that he was involved with them, so then it's kind of like...
Not really, because...
Again, it's not...
Right,
according to
right.
them, there was 10 people in the room, we all need to write the...
Right, so the reason why not is because the difference when you say kulchem or you don't say kulchem. When you don't say kulchem, you just say to 10 people, Shtab and get some afro. 2 of them, one guy could write it and 2 of them could sign and they could give it. It's a pool of people that you could use from. You don't need them all. If you say kulchem, that's different, and we'll see later on about when you say all of you, then they all have to be there and this and that. But when you just say, guys, hey, write and give this get to my wife, just 3 of them could just do the job, or 2 and whatever, and therefore they don't have to inquire. Now, the following question, but now kulchem. If let's say he said, all of you, I want you all to sign. Halacha is, as the Gemara tells us later in the Samach Vav Mebez, that it's not a get until they all sign. What would the halacha be over there? Would Rabbi Shimon Gamliel say that it's forbidden that you shouldn't be mevatel 1 or 2 of them, not in front of the others, or not? So the Gemara explains, well, it really depends on these 2 different interpretations that we had from Rabbi Shimon Gamliel's halacha. If you say time of Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, that where you don't say kulchem, that he says einu yachol is mishum l'ksav because he holds eid shabbat l'miktsasa, as the first interpretation said. Because when you nullify some of the testimony, but l'kula, all of it is batal. So we were concerned. Wait a second. If you're taking these 2 guys in the side room and you tell them the other ones are not going to know about the bittul and they're going to give it to her. Oh, but vahani over here in this case, even the amalahu kulchem. Since he said all of you, wait a second, you don't have that concern anymore. Because they know, this is really what your question was, that all of them have to sign. As long as they're not all signing, they can't write and give it. So you're not going to run into the problem. So they were actually, would allow you to mevatel some of them, he's not going to run into this problem. Why wouldn't it be batal? It's Eidish Shabbat Mitzvah Batla Kula. It would be mevatel. We'd mevatel actually all of it, and you wouldn't have the problem about, oh, wait a second, they're not going to know, and then they're going to go, well, they're not going to know. Of course they know, because you said kulchem, they all have to be present when you're signing.
In order for him to be mevatel, he has to be mevatel.
No, that's the Ibai Sema. That's the Ibai Sema. That's exactly the next part of the Gemara. That's the first pshat didn't hold that's the reason. First pshat held that you're not allowed to because it's takana, because it's a gezeira. Oidilma says, oh, maybe no. Maybe Tam Shem is like we said in the second pshat. Because he holds anything that's done in front of 10 people, you need 10 people to remove it. Even the kulchem, it doesn't make a difference because it's not a real bittul. So actually, they can assign even those that are mevatel in front of them with their friends and give it to her according to that second shot because it wasn't a bittul. So actually. It wouldn't do anything, and actually all would sign because it wasn't a bittul. So basically, the Gemara's question on kulchem is, well, what do you say? Do you say like the first shot? Do you say like the second shot? Well, it says Tashmas being a from the following brisa. Brisa says, Amal Shnayim. If someone says to 2 people, "No get leishti," okay, give a get to my wife. Allah is yachal levatel. He can nullify, meaning and it's going to be a bittul, and this is not going to be kosher anymore for this guy to be an 8 anymore until he commands him otherwise. He can mevatel him zeh shaloi b'fnei zeh divrei Rabbi. Rabbi says, as we mentioned this before, he says you can take one of them to the side. Says you are not an aid, and that's it. You can do one not in front of the other. He says no. You cannot nullify. And therefore, the guy himself is going to be kosher to sign because you cannot do a bittul. Only one in front of the other. Says the Gemara. Now the case of two, which is the case of the Brisa, dichi kulchem dami. 2 is like kulchem of 10, because by 2, obviously both have to sign, and you can't, you're not concerned that maybe one is going to go sign without the other one, because we all know one witness doesn't do anything, doesn't affect anything. And upligi, and still they disagree. And what does Rabbi Shloimy Gamliel says? Ein yochel levatel. Oh, obviously you see that Rabbi Shloimy Gamliel is not saying it iser. He's saying it's not going to be a bittul. It's like the second interpretation. So that's going to be the same thing by kulchem. That's not going to do anything. And therefore, even the guys who mevatel could go ahead and sign with the rest on the get. Which the Gemara says, no, it's not a raya. Amar Rashi. He says, if these two people are be'edik kesiva, are the witnesses of the writing and the signing, yeah, hachanami. The truth is, Shmuel would agree that you could be mevatel. And this bittul would be a bittul. Because I could tell you really the pshat is like the first pshat. That the reason is because of a gezeira. And here, there is no gezeira. Because, like we said, it's like kulchem. And therefore, it actually would be a bittul. But Hachmaiskin is a little bit complex. Like it's like a little of an explanation over here. We thought it was talking about Eidei Kesiva v'Chasima, like the Eidei Chasima. So then we brought a raya. It would be like the second list. We're saying, no, it's not talking about that. If it was talking about that, you're right. We would agree that you could do bittul. When this guy was saying to two people, give a get to my wife, the words are tenu get le'ishti. He was telling them to give it. So the get was given to them to be shluchim to give it to her. Oh, over here when he says to one of them, the other one will go because he doesn't know and he will give it to her. Because this is not an edus that they both have to be there for. So we said that the other one won't sign without the other one because of course you need two witnesses to sign. No, this is a shlichus that both of them should be over there. So he doesn't know that is mevatel the shlichus. Where shlichus shabat lemiktsasa is bat lekula. Where just like he's mevatel this guy is mevatel the other guy, which it is, but he's not going to know. And that's why Rabbi Shloimy Gamliel says that you can't. But it's not a raya regarding the case of kulchem, because it's not a case of kulchem. Because shlichus, you don't need both. And he's not going to know. But the mice, when he's mevatel one, he's mevatel the whole thing. Says in Mahachadam Estab, it's actually logical like this, that we're talking about Eidei Halacha, witnesses of that they should transport it. And the reason is because, like the first pshat, because we're concerned that maybe one guy who was not notified will go because he wasn't told, and he'll give it to her. Because the Tani Sefer, the end of the brisa says, if he told this guy on independently. Well, he told this guy independently. Meaning, as Rashi explains, if initially, when he made them shluchim, he didn't tell them both together, you guys be my shliach. Yeah, they went to one of them, says, I want you to be my shliach. And they went to the other guy, he says, look, I gave my get to that person to give to my wife. If you want to also, you could also be my shliach to divorce her. He's going to pay guys or whatever this and that. You can also go along. Then, says the Bryce in the Sefer, then they could nullify one not in front of the other. And he's going to mevatel him from the Torah's shlichus, where if this guy divorces her, she's not going to be divorced. But the second one could divorce. Because since in the beginning it wasn't both together, so there's no more shlichus shabat l'mitzah shabat l'kula. Because it wasn't one agency. Each one had a separate shlichus. And if this guy who doesn't know about the bittul goes and gives it up, okay, that says the Sefer the Brisa, that will be okay because it's not a shlichus shabat l'mitzah because it's two independent shlichus. Says the Gemara. So this is a raya. They were talking about Eidei Halacha, not Eidei Chasima. Because if you say Eidei Halacha that this is Eidis for transporting Shabbat, you could say that he said to this guy independently, because it's not an Eidis that they have to see or hear something, an Eidis together, seeing the get that is being done appropriately. It's just a delivery. So that can be independent. But if you say, like we originally thought in the Havmina, that these are witnesses of the writing and of the signing, well, that's a full-fledged Eidus. You think you think they would combine when you tell this guy independently, this guy independently? It wouldn't. Therefore, obviously, you see, it's talking about Eidei Halacha, and therefore it's not a raya to the question we asked of Kulchem, because we only thought it was a raya because you're telling two people to sign, which you can't do that. So it's like Kulchem. It's not really talking about like a case of Kulchem, because it's not Eidei Kesiva and Chazim, it's Eidei Halacha, which that you could say each one independently to be a shliach. So as the Gemara says, that's the signing, but this is not the signing. That's what we throw in the Havmina. This is the transporting. Transporting, There's no edus that you have to see.
How can the Gemara possibly be talking about a case where it's a
Oh, so the Gemara actually will say in the second how it's possible. But actually, right now, the Gemara is saying, if it was Edik Siva, how would they combine? But the Master says, as the Gemara brings this in Ksubis and Babas, a few other places, Ein Edus Mitzdarefes, you cannot have a testimony combined at Shiur Shneim Kechad until they see together the Edus. So if it was Edik Chasima, it's not possible that it was Zeh Shalei B'fnei Zeh, because they have to see the Edus together. That this again, obviously it's Edik Halacha. The Gemara actually rejects the Raya and says, no, Dimuk Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg really. Maybe they actually held like Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg, who actually disagrees in the second paragraph of Chavav and Beis and Sanhedrin of Lamed. He actually says that the Edus could even be Zach or Zeh. So it actually would be able to be Edik Chasima. So it's not a Raya. But definitely we didn't, it's not a proof, but it's not a proof the other way either, that it would necessarily be Edik Halacha. It could be Edik Chasima too. Now, in the explanation of this Machlekes, the Gemara has the following statement. Amar Rav Shmuel bar Yehudi, he says, Shama minei Reb Abba, I heard from Reb Abba Tarti. I heard from him, in other words, regarding these two machlekes that we have in this daf of Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg, regarding if you go against the takana and you mevatel it, if it's mevutel, so that was one machlekes we had on Amud Aleph. Then we had another machlekes regarding could you mevatel on the bottom of Amud Aleph, could mevatel some of the edim shalei b'fnei the other ones. So I heard from Abba that he established the halacha of these two machlekes. One he passed like Rabbi that it will be batel, and one he passed like Shmuel that it will not be batel. But he says, I don't know which one was which. That he said one, yeah, one, but I don't know which one which. So Rabbi Yisrael says, he says, let's see, we can figure this out. How can we figure this out? Because the Chiyasar of Dimi, when Dimi came, he said like this. He said, there was a story, the Asar Rebbe. Rebbe did, this story is brought in Masechet Ksubis and Avkofim and Aleph, he did Kedivrei Chachamim. What does that mean, Kedivrei Chachamim? They said that when the judges are evaluating for a dispute, a certain piece of property, if they diminish from a sixth, or they add, meaning they do a sixth less than the value, or they do more than a sixth of the value, that the sale is going to be null and void, because even though it's Bezdin, if you're making such a discrepancy of what the actual value is, you're so off, that's batal. So Amal Fanam Rabbi Parta Benoisha Rabbi Lazar Ben Parta Ben Benoisha Rabbi Lazar Parta Agadol, the great Tzeiches, is going through meaning him and his Tata and his the Zaida that and the Elta Zaida. So he's saying, hey, wait a second, if you're going to do this, that if the bezin is off a shtis, more or less, so my koich bezin yafa. So what is the great power of the courts that you just like you could just censure and veto what the court does? So b'chazar Rebbe, you're right, he retracted. And they did like Shmuel, meaning he did over the story, and the Taka said no, it is a valid mecher. Ooh, so we see that he retracted, and Rebbe, who disagreed with Shmuel, you see held like Shmuel that what? That you have to give the power to the courts. Obviously, on this halacha of Makoich Bezdin Yafa, the halacha is like Shmuel. So that would be the halacha of the first machlokes we had regarding if you mavatal it after Shmuel was masak and not mavatal is going to be batal. Rebbe himself, who is the disputant, he retracted to like Shmuel, and he had you're right. You can't make it that the rabbunim have no koyach mezuk epis and the titus yom we flaunted that we go against the rabbun. No, that's it. You cannot do this anymore. See that would be the one that he passed like Shmuel. So it says the Gemara, from the fact that this is the one that held Shmuel must be hach. The one that, if you mavatal some of the edus not in front of the other ones, is Rabbi. That would be like Rabbi. It says the Gemara, Rabbi Yisha the min Usha. Rabbi Yisha, who is from Usha, to differentiate from the other Rabbi Yisha. So he held like one's like Rabbi, one's like Shmuel. What's the right? Because the Amar Rabbi Chani says, Chamisha Sabi Havina and Kamed Rabbi Yisha the min Usha. We were 5 elders in front of Rabbi Yisha from Usha, and also who Gabra Kameh, a certain man that came in front of him. And Rabbi Yisha took forcibly a get from him, meaning he forced him to divorce his wife, as we find the Gemara Ksubas Daf Ayin. Certain cases we force him to go ahead and divorce his wife and give her a ksuba. So Amalan, then Rabbi Yisha told us, the witnesses, he told us after he forced this guy, until he made him say, yes, I want this get, he said quickly, Zilu go atmuhu, hide yourselves, that he should not be mevatel you guys from being the edim on this get, and b'chasla quickly write it. Says the Gemara, wait a second. If you would think to say that by the first case of the machlekes Rebbe Shmuel, The halacha would be Rebbe like Rebbe that if you mavatal in front of two other people, it's going to be batal, even though you didn't come to the shliach to the isha. So ki mitamri, when these Eidim hide, mahava, what are you gaining? Who cares? You can pick two random people and fast in front of them. Shmamina, obviously you see Kibshim Gamliel Svirle. That regarding that halacha, he also paskin like Kibshim Gamliel. Now, more, we still get you thinking to say that idach nam Kibshim Gamliel. From the story itself, we can prove the other way too. If you think the other halacha of Zesh Lebef Nezeh, that he passed from Kibshim Gamliel, Lamlu et Tamuri. Why do you need them to hide themselves? Levajiv Duri. Just separate that you're not all together. And you cannot mevatel Zesh Lebef Nezeh. Wow, this story tells us both. Obviously, in regarding that halacha, chad the Rebbe. Regarding that, he held like Rebbe that you could do zesh lebef nezeh. Never you have to have them hide, because separating wouldn't be enough. But regarding the other halacha that he could that he would be able to that it would not be bottled. Regarding that, he held Rebbe. Now, however, Rav Nachman he disagrees. Says halacha kreb b'shteim. Halacha is like Rebbe, like both of them, that it is going to be bottled, even though Ramil said not, and you could mevatel zesh lebef nezeh. So says the Gemara, really? That's Rav Nachman Paskins? The less Rav Nachman, does Rav Nachman not hold of the halachic dictum makoich bezin yafa, which was that's the whole support of Shmuel that he says that you can't mevatel. What's the whole power of the courts? You tell me he doesn't hold of that? But Rav Nachman Mishmul, Rav Nachman said name Mishmul Gitin Daf Olive Yisaymin, minor orphans. Shabo lachli benefs that mean the tata passed away, and these lenebach loylaini young kids they're coming to divide the father's estate. So bezin mamid lemapatropis. So the courts appoint for each of the orphans an apotropos, a caretaker, and they select for every apotropos selects for his child that he's in charge of chelik yafa, a good portion for him. That's how you should divide in an equal way. But higdilu, but Rav Nachman says over name Shmuel, when they get older, because they can protest. Say, what was I? I was a 5-year-old. What I know, and he could protest and say, I don't want that chalukah to work. That's how Shmuel holds. But Nachman did this is what Rav Nachman said in name Shmuel. Nachman himself holds no. Do when they become older, because they can't protest. If they could protest, then makoich bezdin. Then what's the strength of the court that appointed these caretakers? What was that any good? So wait a second. You see, he holds a makoich bezdin. So how could he paskin like Rebbe that after Melil's takana you could still mavatal that makoich bezdin? Says the Gemara, no, there's a difference. Hasam over there in that case of the assignment is mamaina, is money. Money, the courts have a lot of power of what's called hefka bezdin hefka. So you can't protest because the bezdin was already mafka your money. Hach over here is Isura is prohibitory law of Eishes Ish. Because of Koich bezdin yafa, Rabban cannot be mafkia a kedushin Eishes Ish, and therefore it's not a contradiction. After that, he doesn't hold Koich bezdin yafa, but Mamoina, he would hold thank you to any time for hosting us.